It's 6:47 on a Wednesday morning, and you're leaning against the vending machine at Marsden Freight Solutions, waiting on a coffee maker that never quite gets the temperature right. Your ID badge hangs from your belt loop. Warehouse shift lead. Same role you've held for 6 years. Your car sits in the far lot, same spot it's occupied since day one, a 2010 Toyota Corolla with 138,000 miles and a spiderweb crack in the windshield you gave up noticing years ago. Your paycheck hits every other Friday. $1,890 after taxes. 2 nights before this, lying in bed scrolling your phone in the dark, you watched a number tick past a threshold it had never crossed before. Your investment account had grown by $2,040 the previous month. Your job had paid you $1,890 across 2 weeks. For the first time ever, the money that wasn't you, the money that never punched a clock, never wore a badge, never stood around waiting on bad coffee, had out-earned the version of you that did all three. Nobody in that vending machine line has any idea. You don't fully grasp it yet either, but this is the quiet hinge point where your whole relationship with work starts to shift. Not the job. Not the badge. Not the car. You. Wind the clock back 6 years. You're 23. Rent is $850 for a studio above a dry cleaner that rattles the floorboards every night around 11. Your paycheck is $1,190 every 2 weeks, and once rent, the car note, and groceries are covered, you're usually left with about $160 until the next one lands. A coworker named Marcus trains you your first month. He's 26, treats his forklift certifications like a personality trait, and leases a new truck every 3 years because, in his words, why tie yourself down to something that just depreciates? You don't judge him for it. He's not careless, he just spends the way nearly everyone around you spends, like the paycheck is the entire story. One afternoon, a coordinator named Rosa catches you eating a granola bar at your station instead of grabbing lunch again. Saving up for something? She asks. Trying to build a buffer, you tell her. My car's been making a sound I don't trust. She nods, taps her phone, and slides it toward you. An investing app, already open. $35 a week, she says. You'll barely notice it leaving. 10 years from now, you won't recognize where you've ended up. You don't respond. It sounds like one of those things people say without really meaning it. But that Friday, you set up the automatic transfer anyway, $35 a week into an index fund you don't yet understand. 3 weeks later, the sound in your car becomes a $610 repair bill. Your stomach sinks reading the estimate. You almost kill the transfer. You don't. You just eat a few more granola bars for a while. By year's end, the account holds $1,890. Not much, but it's the first time in your adult life a number exists that Marcus's lease truck can't compete with. 2 years go by. Nothing dramatic happens, and that's not a shortcut in the telling, that's genuinely what this stretch feels like. You get bumped up to $54,000. The weekly transfer creeps to $140 without you consciously deciding it should. It just becomes the amount that disappears before you'd think to miss it. Marcus gets a new truck, then a jet ski he rides maybe 5 times a summer. He's not foolish. He works hard, he's generous with his time. He just tracks progress by what fits in his driveway. You're tracking something else, even if you couldn't name it yet. Rosa retires that spring. Before she clears out her desk, she leaves you with one more line, almost tossed off while boxing up a row of succulents. The market's going to spook you eventually. When it does, leave it alone. You nod the way people nod at advice they assume they'll remember. There's no big scene here. No windfall, no crash. Just Wednesdays. Just $140 leaving your account before you can second guess it, landing in a fund whose name you'd stumble over saying out loud. By 25, the balance crosses $27,600. Nobody throws you a party. There's nothing worth announcing. Your car ticks past 100,000 miles. The floorboards still rattle at 11. The only thing that's shifted is a number on an app you're checking less and less often. That's the part nobody warns you about. This stage is supposed to feel dull. If it feels thrilling, something's probably gone wrong. At 26, the account crosses $49,000 and something shifts. You start checking it, not compulsively, but when a market headline pops up on your phone, you tap into it now instead of scrolling past. Then, in February, it happens. The market slides 18% over 5 weeks. Your $69,000 turns into $57,000 in a run of days that feels far longer than it is. Marcus, over lunch, mentions he zeroed out his 401k contributions. Why keep pouring money into something that's shrinking? It's not an unreasonable question, it's the exact question almost everyone asks at this stage. You think about Rosa boxing up her succulents. Leave it alone. You leave it alone. You do something even harder, you keep sending $140 into a fund worth less every single week you feed it. Some Fridays it genuinely feels like burning cash. 6 months later, the account has climbed back to $82,000. A year after that, it crosses $100,000, a figure you used to assume belonged to other people, older people, people whose lives looked nothing like yours. That same month, a promotion opens up. Operations Supervisor. An extra $5,800 a year, plus a vehicle stipend since the job means shuttling between 2 sites. You think about a new truck. You spend 11 minutes one night configuring one online, adding leather trim you'd stop noticing within half a year. You close the tab. Not because you can't afford it, you easily could now. But because somewhere between the crash and the recovery, you'd absorbed what Rosa had actually meant. The number itself isn't the point. What the number lets you keep not spending, that's the point. At 28, something happens you don't fully register until weeks after. During your quarterly check-in, a habit now, not a chore, you notice the account grew by $9,150 in 3 months. Your take-home after the promotion runs $3,180 a month. You run the math twice, sure you've made an error. The account grew more in a single quarter than you'd earned in an entire month. It's not every quarter, the market doesn't move like clockwork. But it happens again 5 months later, then again the following spring, until it stops feeling like a fluke and starts looking like a pattern. That same fall, your Corolla, now sporting a replaced alternator and 161,000 miles, needs an $1,050 repair. 3 years earlier, that number would have weighed on you for a week. This time you pay it straight from checking without so much as opening the investment app. That's the crossover point. Not one dramatic day, but a slow-dawning realization that the money you didn't spend has started doing something you never could on your own, working every hour, every weekend, every night you're asleep, no badge required, no shift to clock into, no raise to ask for. Your friend Owen, who runs a small landscaping company and drives a truck twice the size of Marcus's old one, tells you at a cookout that business has never been better. He's not exaggerating, revenue really is up. But so is his credit line, and so is the payment on that truck, and so, quietly, is how hard the business needs to keep performing just for him to stay even. You don't say any of that out loud. You just notice, for the first time, that looking successful and being financially secure can be 2 entirely different things wearing the same jacket. At 30, your manager offers you the regional coordinator position, a bigger title, $13,500 more a year, relocation to a site 90 minutes out. 2 years earlier you'd have said yes mid-sentence. Instead you ask for a week to think it over, and during that week you do something you've never done before, you calculate what your investments alone could cover if you stopped working entirely. They can't cover it, not yet, not close. But they'd carry you 8 months. Maybe 9 or 10 if you were disciplined about it. 8 months you didn't have 3 years ago. 8 months that quietly reshaped the entire conversation with your manager. Because now you're choosing this job, not depending on it. You turn down the regional role not out of pride, but because the 90-minute drive would cost you something the extra pay couldn't buy back, time, and the shape of the life you'd built around needing less. That winter, your brother calls about a repair bill he can't cover, $760, a blown transmission line, the kind of expense that used to derail an entire month for you. You send it before he even finishes explaining. You don't think about it again. Marcus, meanwhile, is still picking up weekend overtime to keep the truck and jet ski payments current. You don't say anything. He seems mostly content. That's the strange part, there's no scene where he learns a lesson. Some people never do, and it doesn't wreck their lives. It just means their version of freedom looks different than yours, if it ever arrives at all. At 31, the account crosses $325,000. Your salary sits at $69,000. For the first time, you notice the account's typical yearly growth is starting to close in on what you earn from a full year of work. The Corolla finally gives out that spring, no drama, just an engine that quits answering. You pay cash for a 3-year-old Civic, the kind of purchase that would have terrified you a decade back, and now it barely registers. You don't upgrade past that. Not because you can't, because you've realized the person who used to choose granola bars over eating out is the same person sitting here now, and you're in no rush to become someone else. Here's the part nobody tells you about this stage: it gets quiet, and quiet isn't always comfortable. At 32, the account crosses $580,000. You tell almost no one. Not out of shame, because you've seen what happens when you do. A cousin brings up a loan at a family dinner the week after you mention a strong year in the market. An old friend goes cold and clipped over text for a month, for reasons neither of you says out loud. You start editing yourself, not lying, just leaving things unsaid. It's the first cost that has nothing to do with money. There's a second cost too, smaller but stranger. At work, you're still the same shift lead in the same 3 rotating work shirts, driving the same Civic. A new hire, 22, assumes you're scraping by and jokes about it once in the break room. You laugh along. You don't correct him. Somewhere inside that laugh sits the recognition that looking modest and being financially free look identical to almost everyone around you, and most of them will never know which one you actually are. And underneath both of those sits a quieter fear you didn't see coming, the fear of losing it. Not recklessly, you're not tempted to gamble any of it away. It's subtler than that. Some nights you check the balance not from habit but from something closer to disbelief, half expecting to discover the whole thing was a clerical error. Rosa's line comes back to you years later, meaning something different than you remembered. You'll barely notice it leaving. 10 years from now, you won't recognize where you've ended up. You'd assume she meant the money. She might have meant this, the version of you sitting in a quiet apartment at 32, realizing the hardest part was never hitting the number. It was learning to inhabit a life that had already changed on paper long before it changed anywhere else. It's 6:47 on a Wednesday morning again, 9 years after Rosa slid her phone across the desk. You're standing in the same spot by the same vending machine, waiting on coffee that's still never the right temperature. Your badge still hangs from your belt loop. The car in the lot is newer now, but that was never really the point. Your paycheck still lands every other Friday, same as always. But last month, your investments grew by $4,700 more than that paycheck did, quietly, without asking your permission, without needing you anywhere near this building. You're not here because you have to be. You settled that question somewhere around $325,000 in a decision that looked, from the outside, exactly like any other Tuesday. Marcus walks in still talking about some new truck he's eyeing. You smile, and you mean it. He's not wrong to want what he wants. You just wanted something that wouldn't fit in a driveway. The crack in your old windshield is long gone, along with the car it belonged to. But you still remember exactly what it looked like, the same way you still remember $35 leaving your account on a Friday, back when $35 was the difference between comfortable and not. That's the part that never shows up in the final number. That first $35 mattered more than the $580,000 does now, not because it was worth more, but because it was the first proof that you were moving in the right direction. You finish your coffee. You clock in anyway. Not because the job needs you, because today, you're choosing it. If this changed how you think about the difference between money you earn and money that earns for you, hit like and subscribe for more stories like this one. And tell me, at what number do you think work stops being an obligation and starts being a choice? Drop it in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.